Before I start the video, I'm just gonna say that I won't be ranking the episodes of BFDI and IDFB. For BFDI, it's easily the best season. All the episodes are peak and they're all equally good. Well, BFDIA 11's the least good because it's the shortest, but never mind that. And for IDFB, there's only one episode. So what's even the point in ranking IDFB when there's just one episode so far? Even if I did rank it, especially for a joke, it will still be too short. So I'm going to start off with no other than BFDIA. I also won't be ranking BFDI Mini because it's more of a mini series that is not canon to the BFDI universe. So I'm going to start with BFDIA, then BFB, and then Teapot. BFDIA episode rankings, let's begin. The first episode was a decent start to the season, but there are some repetitive scenes. One scene is when Puffo repeats Yahoo I wanna know a gajillion times. And then the fight scene, while it was good, was also repetitive because they kept repeating sometimes whatever shit you do, yeah, that's just repetitive, anyway. But yeah, the chase scene was epic, the challenge was good, and Donut was great in this episode. So 6.7 out of 10. A decent start, but has its flaws. This episode is a significant improvement from the first episode. The plot is great, and the Get Digging gag wasn't as stale as the sometimes gag they used in the first episode. But the Puffball Ryan to Yoyoland scene dragged the episode on for a bit too long. So yes, a 9 out of 10. I would have ranked it higher if it wasn't for that puffball scene. This episode was a disappointment than the last episode. The idea of killing bugs is great, and is also a great way to carry on the insect phobie's nightmare trilogy. But the reason why the ranking is so average is because it focuses on Pencil and her alliance only. Like, they take up the majority of the episode, especially the challenge. It would have been much better if they made it longer. Yes, the episode being short is another reason why it's average. So, as I was saying, it would have been better if the episode was longer and could get everyone an equal amount of screen time. This episode is my favorite episode of the pre-hiatus era of BFDIA, and I also like it more than BFDIA 5 by surprise. I really liked the plot, and I didn't give a shit about Teardrop's elimination. Sure, it was unfair, but I only cared for Teapot Teardrop. And Golf Ball was the best character in this episode, especially when she roasted Pencil and told Tennis Ball to freaking kill her. Yeah, this episode's peak, and Golf Ball was the biggest reason why this episode was peak, so it's a full 10 out of 10. Up next, we have the entirety of BFDIA 5. I'll rank BFDIA 5 as a whole episode, not as parts. So I gotta admit, the writing for BFDIA 5 was more splendid than any other episode, especially for an episode that has a similar duration of a movie. There was nothing repetitive, it acted like a perfect episode. The only reason why I gave it a ranking lower than BFDIA 4 is due to how overrated this episode is. Yes, I am a person who doesn't have a good taste on how overrated things are. So yeah, that's why BFDIA 4 is my favorite pre-hiatus BFDIA episode. Okay, let's all be very honest here. Almost all of us weren't expecting BFDIA to return. And whether or not we expected it, this episode is very well written. The writing is just as good as BFDIA 5's writing, and is also a very great way to bring BFDIA back. Way better than the first episode itself. Enough said. And Evil Weefy was there, and that's it. So, another whole 10 out of 10. Wow, just wow. BFDIA just came back, and it already got a painfully average episode. The episode is supposed to be about building a new loser chamber, but it mainly focuses on Freesmart and the Yo-Yo-White. I mean, most of it. But aside from that, most of the episode was stale. But the walking scene was fun, and the poem at the very beginning was very fun as well. So, 5.5 out of 10 for its positives. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Ruby was obnoxious in that episode. Especially when she refused to give away the Yo-Yo-White. Okay, we already got an average episode in the post-hiatus, but we got an episode that is an improvement from the last episode. The writing is great, and the episode played out well. However, there is one thing that annoys me a lot about that episode. In BFDIA 6, the contestants said that they'll live in Yo-Yo Land forever, but guess what? 2 episodes after they said that, Freesmart was able to make it back to Goiki by simply walking with no problem at all. And it was Ruby's fault for asking the host to do cake at stake at the Clubhouse of Awesomeness. And speaking of Ruby, that scene with her in the apple, she was a bitch in that scene. And the contestants make it back from Yo-Yo Land to Goiki with no problem at all. It's basically proving that they're ruining continuity here. So, 8 out of 10 is the final ranking. I would have ranked it higher if it wasn't for that big continuity destruction. Basically the second best episode of post-hiatus BFDIA. This episode's a 1-1, so it should be a good and well-written BFDIA episode. The 3D scenes were weird, but they weren't enough to bother me and rank this episode lower. But what really bothers me is no other than, you guessed it, Ruby. First off, Ruby was an idiot like she always is, and she's also hypocritical in this episode. She says she is illiterate, yet she is able to read herself, which is an act of hypocrisy. And if that wasn't enough to make her even more crappy, that scene where she would go was so freaking obnoxious. It's basically proving how much of an obnoxious bitch Ruby is. So I'm gonna give this episode a ranking of 9.5 out of 10. Sure, Ruby was crap in this episode, but the episode played out well. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Ruby was also responsible for the destruction of the Eiffel Tower. But there was at least one good and funny thing she did in the episode, and that was her yo-yo toilet gag. Okay, this is going to be the weirdest ranking of the video so far, but I don't care. I'm just gonna get to it anyways. So to start off, the episode played as well as the last episode. And the idea of all the teams fusing together into one team is a very clever idea. It gives me pre-BFDIA 5 Team No Name vibes. Like how Team No Name used to be a big team with almost every single contestant on it. I also really liked Fries being on a team on his own. And let me tell you, he roasted the hell out of the Beautiful Face Devotion Institute by taking them down by simply winning one challenge all by himself. I guess that's so funny. And the Dubstep remix was fire as well. So, 9 out of 10. And Fries' quote at the very end, "God dang it, viewer! BFDIA 11 is probably underground," is also peak. First painfully post-hiatus BFDIA episode after 3 episodes. Now I'm gonna explain why I gave out this ranking. Okay, so first off, at the start of the episode, it was kind of clever of Carrie and Michael to bring back a long-lost character of theirs in the BFDI universe. That was Jack Brew to be exact. But here are the downs of this episode. First of all, Pin losing her face was horrifying. Even more horrifying than the 3D models in the last 2 episodes. Flower being a host is sort of a bad idea, because Flower is shown to be biased. Even more biased than how Donut was when he was the host for BFB. And the Free Smart fashion scene was also bad, I would say so myself. And Ice Cube was such a jerk to Flower. What should we call him? Flower ugly, no matter how hard she tried to look fashionable. And Flower gave Ice Cube a taste of her own medicine. So yes, this episode is 4.4 out of 10. This is by far the worst BFDIA episode so far. Words cannot describe how really, really disappointed I am with this ever-loving piece of shit. The first trailer said something about Dirt Cake, and Weefy and Evil Weefy were also on there. But in the final episode, Weefy didn't appear. They lied about Weefy appearing, and they also lied about Dirt Cake. But gradually, the one thing that they didn't lie about was that Evil Weefy at least appeared. And it's nice to see Evil Weefy in an episode after so long. Also, Ruby was at her absolute worst in this episode. She shrunk Pin because she thought that Pin didn't like Free Smart just for not speaking up because Pin's face is gone, giving her the inability to speak, and she just shrunk Pin anyways. This proves that Ruby is even more stupider than she was before. And if that wasn't enough, to make matters worse, she's one of the main characters of the episode, meaning that she appears often, and I'm forced to listen to her brain-rotting voice. And all her sisters made a surprise cameo, and were they better? They're just as bad as her, so no. They all have the same voice, and it rots my brain even harder. And while Ruby did get what she deserved by getting replaced by her sisters, that still wasn't better, because her sisters are proven to be just as unlikable as her, especially at the ending, where they manipulated Needle to be a member of Free Smart. And not to mention that the constant color changing on every time Ruby / her sisters appear on screen, it gets on my nerves. This pisses me off so much to the point where I want to swear. And what about Kevin McLeod being a guest voice actor of this episode? Well, it was cool for Kevin McLeod to be a guest voice actor, given how he is the composer of all that iconic music. But he's basically the reason why everybody likes BFDIA 12. Like, just because somebody who's really famous is a guest voice actor doesn't mean you have to make them the only reason. And those scenes focusing on Pin's mind confuses me a lot. Queenie said that he's dead, yet he's still alive, which is confusing me a lot. Though, I could consider that those scenes take place after the events of the episode in chronological order, because Queenie did die later in the episode, but still. There are at least some positive to the episode, like Fire getting killed by the bugs. The bugs make an interesting host, and Fries was the best character in this episode. He was absolute fire. But this episode is a terrible episode for the Insect Phobies Nightmare trilogy. And it's also a bad way to bring back the trilogy. So I'm going to give this a 3.6 out of 10 in return. Literally the worst episode of BFDIA so far. And I'm still very disappointed by how it went. So that's all the episodes of BFDIA ranked. It's good, but BFDI and IDFB are way better. I still won't be ranking the episodes of BFDI and IFB, like how I said at the very beginning of the video that I won't be ranking them. I'll rank the episodes of BFB next. I'll do it when I have the time to. So that's basically the whole video. I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.